get this recording started right now. Thank you so much for being here. And again, we're going to really focus on the forward test today. I've got a couple things I just want to share about access and a couple things of WIDA nature, but we'll get started and get going on this right now. So welcome to February, the end of February. Going pretty quickly, but again, winter can never go quickly enough, I guess. As I said, we're going to really focus on forward exam. We'll take any and all questions. And just a reminder that we do have office hours every Wednesday and Monday and Wednesday afternoon at 2 p.m. So I'll continue to push that. So we're available at any time, but those are times we're definitely available for you. Today, especially, it's really important that those of you who have been through forward testing will probably have a better sense for certain things, especially like scheduling, than those people who have not been through this. So I'm asking that, as always, we share our expertise so that in the whole, the administration goes easier for people. I know there are always a ton of questions. That's good. But if you could, we're going to talk about scheduling a little bit. If you have something that you can actually share with friends at other schools, that would be helpful. So before we jump into that, I just want to start with the follow-up from access testing. I really want to share appreciations with and give appreciations to each and every one of you at all the schools. It was amazing. It was outstanding work. We had talked about getting a jump on things prior to winter break. We had 60% of the district completed prior to winter break. We have never done that. It was great. It was amazing. I appreciate the efforts that you all went through, the staff in your buildings, students and families to get this accomplished in the way that we did. I think that we are, as a district, probably sitting at over 90% completion rate, which I don't think we've ever gotten before. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Kind of along those same lines, we are going to be having new material arriving in your buildings. So WIDA has updated and created a new tool for kindergarten screening. So this will replace the K model. It'll be in your school soon. There will be information about that particular tool. So the thing that the question always comes up is, what do we do with our old K model material? And so we're saying, since it's not secure material, it's not, it may have a copyright on it, but it's not like you can't put the forward questions on the onto Facebook, etc. You can get rid of it. I would say recycle it, shred it, recycle it in the recycling bin, or send it to me, and I'll do exactly that same thing. But the reason is we don't want you to get confused over a box of K model, the materials there, and the box of the new K screener. So out with the old, in with the new, and you should be ready to go. So there'll be more information being shared with your building staff about that in the near future.
Yeah, and actually, Tim, I'll just jump in and say principals were shared on that last week in the principal bulletin. Your ESL BRTs in your building got an email, I believe it was on Monday, about that. This is a DPI-led thing, so we can no longer use the K model anyway for screening purposes. And yeah, I think that's it. So I would probably also be a point person on like how to implement this stuff. I'll be the one probably dropping things off with your building. So if you have questions, I'm probably the point person, and we won't do them here, but you can find me somewhere else.
Great. Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it. And this has been a joint effort between the multilingual programs team and the assessment team. So, all right. Forward exam 2022. Some of this is repeated from last month, just because, again, we've got new people that are jumping in. I appreciate that, but I just want to reiterate some things that are important for us all to think about. First of all, computer-based. It is not an adaptive test, and you have to use a Chromebook. Okay, there are extremely rare circumstances, and the student services staff connects with us to make sure that that is taken care of where they use a desktop. But all students should be using a Chromebook. The name of the portal is called the Drc Insight Portal. It used to be called eDirect. So we'll take you to that a little bit today. That's where you as a coordinator or your team will be working. You'll get information from there. We'll be talking about what that actually is. So for grades 3 and 5, we're talking about English language arts assessment and mathematics assessment. For grade 4, we're talking about, in addition to the ELA and math, we're talking about science and social studies. Now, again, here are some things we know. It must be given in person. And we'll revisit this when we talk about who's responsible for assessing virtual students. But forward must be given in person. The window opens on March 21st, so we're about a month out right now. That's a Monday, the 21st. It's the week right before spring break. Once we return from spring break, you have the rest of April to finish up the forward assessment. So again, you may want to consider front loading, just as we did with the access. So at least you get a chunk or at least a small, part in the start on the assessment prior to the break. Okay. Linda, thank you very much. Linda Zimmerman has put a sample schedule in the chat. So if you have that, if you want to take a look at that, if you're new to scheduling, or if you just say it's got to work better than it has in the past. Again, that's great. Thank you, Linda. Now, and for those of you who are watching this as a recorded video, I'll put that link into a document, the agenda document, so that it's there. Couple things. First of all, students will need to have tickets. Again, working with the vendor, they are not open. They will not consider anything like single sign-on, so ClassLink will not be available. You will be getting a set of tickets from the assessment office. Sarah will be busy printing. They will be a different color for each content area. Those will come to you in early to mid-March, so well prior to the assessment actually starting. But we'll talk about some of the timeline and things that have to happen prior to the printing of the tickets and why certain pieces of this timeline are really critical. So just keep that in mind. Now, speaking of critical pieces, some documents that are either in the works, need to be returned to us, or you'll be getting momentarily, meaning this week. First of all, designated supports, which is a kind of a middle tier of supports for students. They need to be turned on, so to speak, in the software. We sent a list out. Sarah sent a list out of students who are English learners and asked for those supports to be identified. Also for those students who are striving readers. And this is one we always as a district struggle with. A support would be text to speech or read aloud would be something for a striving reader. An English learner would be could be text to speech, or it could be stacked translations. Now, those of you who have been through this in the past will note that stacked translations and text to speech are mutually exclusive. You cannot have both. You can request those, but we're not going to give those to you because the text to speech reads, literally the voice reads the text that's on the screen. It will read the instructions. It will read the question. It will read the potential answers. It will not read the reading section of the test. However, if you put in stacked translations, which is
Spanish translation followed by the English. Spanish translation of the question followed by the English. This voice will attempt to read the Spanish words using English pronunciation rules. Doesn't work. It's rather disappointing that they have not been able to make a change of that, but they have not. So text to speech and stack translations mutually exclusive. This document was due last Friday, and I will be sending out an email if you have not responded and given us this information. It won't be a nasty gram, it'll be a reminder, but just keep in mind that all of this is done for a reason. Things are getting really tight, really busy for us in our office, and we may or may not be able to get everything done in as timely a fashion as you want, and then it becomes an anxious thing. I will be emailing those of you who haven't had that, just saying, I need to have this. So please get that to us as soon as possible. Sarah is also sharing by the end of this week a document, a spreadsheet, which will include the accommodations, those students with IEPs or 504s on them. The point is not for you to go with a fine-tooth comb over all of this, because it's being pulled right from OASIS, and it should represent what's in the student's IEP. What we're looking for are things that are missing. Maybe there's an open IEP yet, and that, in which case, let us know as soon as possible what that is. Or there have been some changes that are not reflected on the I-7 for forward. So we need to have, again, just take a look to make sure things seem right. And we need to have these changes a week from Friday. And what happens during this coming week is literally the website gets shut down. We cannot make changes. And so upon return after the 4th of March, here's what happens. Monday, the 7th of March, we collect all that information that you've shared with us. We've double checked it, and any changes, we've made those. And Sarah begins the upload process into DRC Insight. That will happen before there are tickets printed, because we want to include all the accommodations and supports in that ticket printing process. So that doesn't mean that that's the end of it. So if there is, for instance, a student that has an open IEP, and you're working to get there and it doesn't happen until, let's say, March 15th, that's fine. Let us know, email us any changes after the 4th, and we'll put those in, but we'll then give you the instructions for how to print the tickets. We'll say, tickets are ready, this has been taken care of, you can go ahead and print the tickets. Okay, so if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask about those things. I do want to take a little bit of time and just review the session times. So the forward test is not timed. Right? Sorry, it is not a timed test. However, we know approximately how long it takes. So this is posted on our website. It's also on the DPI site. So this will give you the grade level, the approximate time in minutes. And because this first part is just the total picture, we'll go and take a look at this second portion. So for instance, we break this down into the ELA session 1. You can see that it's about 40 to 60 minutes. The writing and language piece is 20 minutes. 20 minutes for listening, 50 minutes for reading. Now, you don't have to do these in order, with the exception of DPI asks us to do the session 1 first, so that allows students to be the freshest in the testing. We'll talk about what the text-dependent writing process is in a moment. Also, one of the things that you see is you'll see that there is There are 3 sessions of mathematics, 3 sessions of science, and let me see if I can scroll down here a little bit. Now let me get rid of my scribblings. And there are 2 sessions of social studies. Again, 4th grade is going to be the students that get science and social studies. The social studies component this year is updated to reflect the new state standards in social studies. So this will be a new experience. It will not be the same as it was in the past. Word on the street is that it is a little bit more difficult because we're asking more really standards based questions. So tightly aligned to the new social studies standards. Okay, so that document is available. You can mix and match sessions as you want. Again, with the exception of the TDA session 1 writing prompt. Okay, now let's go back to the recording, the slideshow. And so session 1, English language arts, text-dependent analysis. This is back this year. It was shortened. Actually, it was gone last year. One of the things I want to point out is that there is such a thing as, it's called the writer's checklist. And once again, I'm going to flip over to the document itself. This is the writer's checklist. This can be copied and placed on the student desk. So they can use this to plan and execute their text-dependent analysis. Now, best practice again would be, this should not be the first time they see this document. I would strongly urge you to use this, at least share it and go through it, and maybe even practice a text-dependent analysis writing prompt with students prior to the test. This, to me, is not teaching to the test. It's saying, here's the process. Also available is a tips for writing the text-dependent analysis response. So there are 4 tips that are listed here. What are they looking for? So keeping this in mind, thinking about organization, transitions, and it's logical. And I know that 3rd graders, this is the first time they will have taken something like this, as far as on a test basis, that you're thinking, I'm lucky if they're writing 2 paragraphs, let alone introduction, a body, and a conclusion. This is where we're going. This is, again, what the TDA is measuring. So back here. So this is available. Again, it should be, it's allowed for students to have it on their desk. There's a checklist portion of proofreading. It describes how to, making sure that you organize it into an introduction, body, conclusion. So these are the kinds of things that should be used and are available. I say should be used because everyone else in the state has this also available. So by not having this available, you are essentially not giving your students the same access as other students across the state have and within the district. So please keep that in mind. The writer's checklist, the TDA, tips for writing should be something that staff can share with students or use to take students through this process. But the only thing that can be available on their desk during the test portion is the writer's checklist. Okay, now sample schedules are available from DPI. They're also on our website. Linda, thank you for sharing yours. If you have questions, there are different ways of approaching this. It could be, so this particular one, the DPI starts with looking at the 4th grade, which of course is the most intense, the most time-consuming portion of the schedule, and it breaks it down into several days. This particular page we're looking at is a 3-day testing block. That's pretty intense, but you certainly can do that. I've known of schools in the district that have said we're going to do all of third grade in one day. In the past, they've tried that and they've never done it again. So, I mean, there are multiple ways of scheduling this. I would urge you to do this not on your own, but working with your principal and your leadership team to say, okay, when can we schedule which grade? You may want to sit down with each of the grade level teams and talk about that schedule, but it should not be a surprise to anyone. And you should be thinking about, oh, fourth grade has this thing happening at this time. And so working around those schedules. Please don't hesitate to reach out to anyone who is a building assessment coordinator for Forward and ask if they've got samples. And if you have samples, again, we will certainly share those. Finally, when you're thinking about this whole window and you have the ability to use the whole testing window, the later you go in the year, the closer we get to the end of year district assessments. So talking about the Bridges math, talking about Fast Bridge reading, talking about the Fast Bridge CBM, etc. So that will be in the later part of the year. And again, if you get closer and closer to that, I mean, we know fatigue sets in, and by this time, you know, it's like, oh, another test. I understand that completely, but just keep those things in mind as we move through this particular time of year. All right. I'm going to go through this slide, then I'm going to stop and see if there are any questions that are out there, and then we'll continue. So Madison Virtual. At one point, I was thinking that at the end of semester one, we would not have any more virtual students. Obviously, that has not happened. We have fewer virtual students, but they still do exist in Madison Virtual Elementary. So who's responsible? Since the virtual school is not considered to be an actual school by DPI as far as accountability is concerned, those students who are in virtual elementary are your students. If you're their primary enrollment, they are your students, and you are responsible for the assessment of those particular students. And again, this goes back to the whole concept that this has to be in-person testing. So we cannot say, working with the virtual teacher to make sure that our students are all testing on this date. Can't happen. So one of the things that I would urge you is, we went through this last year. So if you were involved with the testing last year, you've been through the whole, safety protocols as far as saying how many people in a room, etc. Now we are, in this midst of changing in Dane County what the mask mandates are going to be. But if you saw the email earlier, I think it was earlier today even, talking about how the district is going to approach this, we will still be using masks throughout indoor instruction, etc. So that it would include testing. You do need to invite those students who are in the virtual elementary, and your responsibility to come in and test, inviting those families. I would suggest that you include some of the information about safe testing, some of the protocols that you're going to take on. As we're getting further away from, and we are, again, not certain what's going to happen after spring break, as the email today said, we've always had a spike after any vacations. Maybe you want to see if you can get some of those students to come in prior to spring break and be involved in that testing. I would suggest that you do either siblings together or very small groups testing. I know it's impossible probably to do all one-on-one, but parents and families have decided on the virtual instruction for specific reasons, and I want to honor that as much as possible. So I am going to stop sharing and see if there are any questions about any of the stuff that is really coming at you fast and furious. So what questions do you have at this moment? By the way, it's great to see everybody's name. I'm glad you're out there. So.
Hi there, Tim. This is Vanessa at Kennedy. I think last year, if virtual families opted out, there was like a form they could fill out to say that they opt out, they do not feel safe, and we were not penalized for the families that made that decision. Is that the case this year?
No, you actually did withstand. I mean, the participation rate, you are not penalized on the state report card. The district didn't penalize you, but you are penalized in the federal accountability piece for non-participation. They literally expect 95% participation, and those of, if you get less than that, they fill in, they make up that difference by adding in zeros as far as the points. So, but to go to your original part of the question was, will there be a form this year? And the answer is no. We're in a completely different situation as far as the pandemic is concerned. Again, out of respect for those families that are choosing to do virtual, we're going to set up the situation where they can come in to the schools. We are not going to put out a form as far as opting out. That being said, that is still an option. Families will need to put in writing. An email is fine. Texts are fine. If you take a screenshot of that, that would be great. Or handwritten note. I need to see that. So if you, because we then go into the software and say the student is not testing for this reason. The board also wants to see this information. So we still accept the whole concept of opting out. We're urging people to take this seriously, because we're going to be using this information to really help move us forward as a district as we come out of the depths of this pandemic. So there will not be a form. It still is an option. And I think I got your question. Is that right? All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, let's go back. Tracy, you had the writer's checklist. I'll put in the notes, and we'll also make that available. I think Sarah just put that in there. And then the question about penalized. So, Anne-Marie, if the school, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but in general, there is the state school report card, and then there is the federal accountability. The state does not penalize us anymore for the participation rate. The federal accountability, which is again ESSA based, does include accountability and participation for the accountability piece. So 95% in each student category. So if you look at the demographics, if you look at the service provisions, you have to hit at least 95% in each one of those categories. So for instance, if you have 80% of your students with disabilities taking the test, they make up that difference. You should have had X number more. They put in a score of 0, and that lowers your whole score as far as how you are compared against schools within the state, which is what the federal does. We can spend some time into that, getting into that a little bit later, but that's the kind of penalty I'm talking about. Okay, I'm going to switch back to the PowerPoint, and let's move on. Part of one of the things that you need to be thinking about, if you haven't done so already, is the professional development. There is, as far as those people who are going to administer or proctor the test, This is a screenshot of the DPI's website, which has the video. I wanted to make sure that it's on our website, but I'll also link it to the DPI. The current video that's there is last year's video. Not much has changed, but I do want to make sure that our video is up to date. There are there's a slide deck, there will be a video, and there will be a PDF of each of the slides. So you can print out full page slides, 3 to a page, 6 to a page, etc. So that professional development will be there. It takes approximately, I think it's 30 minutes, give or take. And so that's what we're looking at. Those of the staff who've been through this before absolutely need a refresher. So it doesn't hurt to do that. So this will all be posted on the website if it's not already there. We talked about this last time, but I want to just remind everyone again that there is a security and confidentiality agreement. The tests itself are secure material. So you cannot take a screenshot of a question, even though you might find it to be, I've had students who've said, this question is wrong. And, a third grader taking calculus might find errors with a question. Okay, do not take a picture of it. Do not share this information with anyone. There's a whole list of things that you're going to agree, as well as your staff who are proctoring are going to agree to keep this confidential. If there's an issue with a question, please let me know. I will share that with the vendor, and we'll take it from there. So there is a list of things that they agree to, and to sign off on that, please hang on to this from your staff. Don't send me your staff confidentiality agreements. I will just send them back. I need yours. So there is a confidentiality agreement specifically for building assessment coordinators or school assessment coordinators. That is something that I need. So I will keep track of that. I've gotten a few of them. In fact, I might just send out an email to everyone with the confidentiality agreement attached so that you can sign it and send it back to me. Likewise, I keep those for a year. And then I also have to send in a confidentiality agreement to the state that I'm vouching for everyone here and everyone in the district. So kind of a series of things. All right. And again, one of the things that I just want to point out, this is a little bit different than any of the other assessments that we do, is that there are 3 levels of support for students. The tools that every student gets, the tools that some students get, and the tools that require an IEP or a 504. Keeping in mind that there are what are called embedded tools and supports, and then non-embedded. A non-embedded would be small group setting, noise canceling headphones or just headsets so that they aren't, picking up extraneous noises. Embedded are things like highlighters, digital rulers, etc. And so all of that needs to be kind of clicked in the background. So this is the process that we're going through right now for ELs and striving readers, making sure that they have those supports that you have indicated. And again, you have a difference between this and other tests, etc. So this does require time to put into the software. So please, 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 I know it's time consuming for you, but it keeps us on track and able to provide service to you in a timely manner. Get that information to us. If you have questions, don't think that there's any wrong question or a dumb question. Please ask, and we would be more than happy to help support you and get things taken care of. All right. Again, student logins will be on the Chromebook, not through ClassLink. They will log out. They will not be logged in as themselves. So couple things. We always will ensure that students restart their computer, because that every time they do that, it updates the software. One of the things we found is that students may have literally left their computer on, not restarting it since the beginning of the school year. So this might take several times, because each time that you turn it on and restart the computer, it will update the operating system. And if you're 3 or 4 behind, you'll need to restart it 3 or 4 times. You might only have to restart it once to ensure that you get all the new stuff, but just keep that in mind. So we're going to be looking at this thing called DRC Insight Online Assessments. Same app that was used, or the same menu, same app that was used for the access testing. This time it's reconnected and linked to the forward test. If it gives a student options, make sure that you click on the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction option. I'm going to just stop here, and I'm going to flip over to actually log into the software right now. And so this is what the portal looks like. I believe it's going to be your email address. We'll see if I can do this the first time, because usually under pressure I cannot. So we'll try it again. Okay. So a couple things. Even before you do this, on the first page are sample tools, online training tools. So that takes you, and you can play around with markers, the highlighters, the line readers, etc. And this would be especially true, is important for those who are in 3rd grade who've never actually used this. But the tools are there, and it's available on this eDirect website. You will be given choices. Again, this is not really live yet. I mean, it's open and it's available, but students are not, things are not in there where they should be. So if you go down to, I'm going to just skip down to post-test actions and student management. One of the things that I'm going to show you on the slides is this, the student status dashboard. One of the questions that always comes up is, how do I know who's finished and how many students are left? If a student was absent and it didn't get caught, have they completed all the different sessions, especially with the 4th grade? There's so many different sessions that they have to take. Keeping track of this, yes, it can be kind of intimidating. So I am going to flip back and just show you what this would look like. So you'll be asked to put in your school name. It'll say, state of Wisconsin, select the school site. So if I'm Chavez Elementary, it'll have that. And then it will show me a dashboard similar to what you would have seen on the access test. So it'll say how many students, how many tests are expected, at which grade level. It'll give you examples of which content areas that have been done and which sessions. But most importantly, so you'll be able to get a good feeling. It's like, oh, look, we now have green that shows up. We're getting somewhere. What's really important is at the bottom of this page is an Excel spreadsheet. It says download CSV file. You open that into Excel and it will list the students and the sessions that have yet to be started. Right away, that's not very important. But as you get closer and closer to the end and you want to make sure that there are students, you're catching all the students, this becomes more and more important. I will be sharing this with everyone on a weekly basis. We'll be updating this and making sure that you have this information. If you do this on your own, that's fine. I apologize. Just tell me, Tim, don't even bother with it. I've got it. But here is also one thing that's really we've found is kind of important that not everybody is aware of. Students may say, I'm done, and close the Chromebook. And they may have not clicked on the submit button, which means they haven't finished. None of their answers go away. It just means they have not finished. So there will be times in which you might look at this and say, oh, I thought Tim was finished because I've got him written down in my notes as completed. And it would say in progress. So you may just want to go in and say, and double check on it and say, oh, look, he forgot to hit submit, click, and you're done. Keep in mind also that if students are doing what I call just a run through with the clicking, and they're done in about 7 or 8 minutes, if they completely, if they submit a test in that long, there's not a whole lot I can do in order to get them to retest. So please keep students focused, have them go slowly. You might want to say, we're going to stop at question 10, and then we will continue, etc. Every year, there are students who click into the wrong session. So if we're doing mathematics session 1 today, they click into session 2. First of all, there are no orders. You don't have to do a session 1 before session 2. So it's not a horrible mistake. But I know people get anxious about that. If the student is in the session for, I think it's less than a minute, maybe it's 2, and they don't do any more than 1 question, I can have that restarted. We can clear that, and we're all good. If they go through and they're in it for 5 or 10 minutes, before then they say, oh, I'm in the wrong session, I would just say, just have them continue, because I cannot close out that test and and get it to restart and reset at 0. So I know it's kind of one of those things where students often are like, well, I'm not following directions. So, or people get anxious and uptight about the fact that everyone's doing session 1, I'm doing session 2. I made a mistake. It's fine. But if something happens, the earlier it's caught, the better. If a student is, like I said, if they are clicking into it and go halfway through it, I cannot undo what they just did. So I would suggest that they continue. And again, 1 session does not build on the prior sessions in the numeric order. So couple things just to think about. And I know, so we'll be talking about this a little bit more detail next month. The resources for forward exam are on our website, and we'll continue to update those and put those out there for you. This link takes you right away to the forward coordinator site. So you'll have to make sure you log in through ClassLink in order to get that access. I'm going to stop again for a couple of questions, and then we'll finish up with the few slides that remain. So, what questions do you have?
I don't have a question, Tim, but I just want to let everybody know, if you use that base schedule or whatever and make it your own, it is from last year, and it says that there was no text dependent question, but it is back this year. So if you can just make sure that you include that in this year's, because that was the sample from last year. So I just wanted to.
Right. So yeah, so text dependent analysis is back. The number of questions were shorter in last year's assessment. Everything is back to how it was pre-pandemic. So you need to keep that in mind. And again, this is not a timed test. The times that are on that sheet are approximate. You'll get most students finishing within that time frame, the vast majority. So, all right, we'll finish up, and then I'll hang out for a while. And if there are any questions, we'll go from there. So, all right. Again, just wanted to reiterate this whole piece about opting out. Families must do it in writing and send that documentation to us, a copy of it. I don't need the originals. If it's a piece of paper, scan it. We'll take the scan. It's only good for 1 year. So if they say, well, I opted out last year and I meant for forever. No, I'm sorry, they have to write a note again or an email. Opting out does have an effect on the schools, the data, the accountability piece. My guess is that we're going to be hearing about this a little bit more and more as the next year or two go by, about federal accountability. we'll hear about it in the newspapers. It won't come from me, but it will be, I think it's primed to get out there. So please keep that in mind. Again, Monday and Wednesday from 2 to 3, we have office hours. The link is in the agenda for those. We have had visitors and I appreciate that, but keep in mind that it's open to everyone. And finally, just how to get a hold of us. David Goss is amazing with data. He really gets this. You know that Sarah is also amazing and we'll just be there for you. So if you want to connect with us regarding with any questions, please don't hesitate. We're here for you and we want to make sure that you get have the best experience possible and that your students do as well. So with that, I'm going to stop the recording